Assalamu alaikum and welcome to season 3 of the Third Party Podcast. I'm your co-host, Rod DeVoe, and I would personally like to thank you all for tuning in and supporting us on our journey to explore faith, culture, and excellence. If you appreciate the show and want to stay updated while seeing it grow, I invite you to subscribe and follow by hitting the black subscribe button at the bottom of this video. Thank you for choosing to be a part of what we are building. Our guest today is the IEP coach, Jamilah Bashir. Jamilah is ferociously dedicated to helping parents, kids, and educators. In this episode, Jamilah talks about growing up Muslim, finding entrepreneurship, and how her faith has been a guiding source in her life. We hope you enjoy the show.
Yo, assalamu alaikum. It's a Third Party Podcast. I'm Muslim Casing, aka the Muslim Boxer, and we're here with Jamilah Bashir.
Yo, Rod DeVoe, Third Party Podcast.
Hey, I'm Jamilah Bashir, aka the IEP coach, and I'm here on a Third Party Podcast.
Welcome to the show, Jamilah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
We like to bring out people that we feel like are doing dynamic things in our community, and what you do is stand out. So we're going to jump into the IEP stuff.
Okay.
What is an IEP?
Okay. So students that qualify for special education services, they get an IEP, which is an individualized education plan. Also, students who are gifted, they have a gifted IEP as well. What are they going to get extra to challenge them because they're academically talented? So I've had students who've had an emotional disability, but they are also gifted. I've had students who are autistic, but they are also gifted. So an IEP is not just for someone who has special needs. It's like also, hey, you're academically talented. You have a gifted IEP as well. So individualized education plan.
Why do IEP need coaches though? Why IEP coach? Why does an IEP need a coach?
Well, I'm a former special education teacher and special education supervisor, so I saw firsthand how I didn't really get coaching when I first started as a special education teacher. I had a coach. I'm not going to say she was terrible, but she was just spread out through so many schools in Philly. I couldn't really say like, oh my gosh, she helped me with this or she helped me with that. And it was so much trial and error for me. And I'm just like, it's not supposed to be like this.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then being a special education teacher, I got pushed into whatever general education teacher's PD was. So it's like I wasn't really getting anything that helped me learn how to write IEPs, helped me progress helped me do all the things that I had to do as a SPED teacher. While I was teaching, I had a lot of colleagues that would come to me, ask me questions because I was a learning support teacher. When I left the Philadelphia School District and I went into the suburbs, I was doing emotional support. And so I got a lot of my colleagues asking me, how do I write this behavior goal? How do I do this? How do I track this and stuff like that? So a lot of people came to me for questions about IEPs. I had people that knew what I was doing outside of, a teacher was like, oh, I got parents coming to me. So I was just like, and that was something that I never got tired talking about. Like, I love talking about the IEP. I love helping people with it. So I was just like, what can I do with this? And someone had reached out to me to do a podcast because they, just saw some of the content that I shared. And they was like, I like the IP coaching that you do. And I was like, I like that name. I'm going to keep it. Right. I didn't say this out loud to them, but I was like, I like that name. I'm going to keep it. Right. And because it really described what I was doing, what I like to do. So it just stuck with me. At the IEP Coach, we're an ed consulting company, and we focus on providing professional development and coaching centered around special education for teachers.
What made you get into special education?
My younger sister, she has an intellectual disability, and we're 6 years apart.
She has
intellectual disability.
Okay.
My sister is 33 now, but she's not at the capacity of a 33-year-old.
Uh-huh.
So, and we're 6 years apart. So, when my mom told me and my sisters that, she was gonna, have some limitations, I was just like, okay.
Uh-huh.
When I went to college, in 2002. And at first, I was not majoring in special education at all. I had no desire ever in my life.
What was your major?
Ever. Actually, my major was biology. I love science.
Okay.
I wanted to go into the medical field because that's something I was very interested in. And when Allah has a call on you to do something, you gotta do it. And I was fighting it. I was not trying to do it at all. But it was just, I think it was from me having my sister, me also supporting my mom, because while I was in school, as I learned things, I passed it on to my mom. And I'm like, oh, Mom, do this. Mom, say this when you go to a meeting. And then I'll say the passion. I just always thought about my sister. I'm like, she deserves quality educators, especially quality educators that are Black, that look like her.
Right.
Because there aren't a lot. There are not a lot of Black professionals that are in special education, even at the supervisor level and director level. There are not a lot of us at all.
Right.
And I think that's what pushed me into doing it, even though I still was fighting. I was like, well, okay, I'll major in special education, but I'm still going to take my prerequisites because I want to go to medical school. And Allah was like, no, you're not. Like, this is what you're going to do. And honestly, it was just that I stopped like resisting and I just leaned into it and I loved it. I really loved it.
So you deal with the actual IEPs or you deal with the parents who have IEPs? So
being a special education teacher, I'm an educator, I'm a case manager, and I support parents because like I have their students or their children are my students. So it's like I wound up not really realizing that I was becoming an advocate because parents were like, well, Miss Bashir, I don't know about this and I don't know about that. Miss Bashir, how do I do this? So it's like me being on the education side, I was just like, okay, I'm able to explain this stuff to parents. And then also by me being a sped teacher, I'm like, there needs to be more out there for parents because they got all these questions. And then I'm getting a lot of thank yous. And I'm just like, you don't get a lot of thank yous being a teacher. But it's like, no, Miss Bashir, you actually explained this to me. You explained this process to me. No one ever did. And I'm like, this is your child's like third IEP. What you mean? But it was like, no, this is the first time someone explained everything to me. So I was just like, dang, I said, it needs to be something out there for parents. So carrying that with me throughout my teaching career. And then when I stepped out of the classroom to become a supervisor, I realized like, dang, I really am an advocate. I'm doing my job. And then also it's like of running the SPED program at my school. But at the same time, like, I'm doing advocacy work for these parents because it's like they don't know how to request a reevaluation. They don't know how to get extra support for their children. And it's like, I'm like, do this, or I'm going to send you this, copy it, put it in your email, send it to this person, do this. And I was just like, I really, especially being a supervisor, I really saw how I was kind of stepping into advocacy work because I never really looked at myself as being an advocate at all.
Is there a criteria that a child has to meet in order for them to be in the IEP?
Parents can request for their child to be evaluated, and there's a process for that. Now, when me being a teacher, every school has an intervention program. So they have like response to intervention, or they have, which is RTI, or they have MTSS, multi-tiered student support. So it's like if you see a student who's having trouble with academics, behavior, or attendance, they go into the RTI process or they go into the MTSS process. And that process is basically you want to intervene so that way they don't need an IEP. However, if they're going through that process and you see, hey, we're collecting data and they're not improving, a permission to evaluate is like, that's like the last resort because you're not, I'll say that's how it should be.
Right. Last
resort. However, there is a huge overrepresentation of Black children in special education because steps are being skipped. People come in with the mindset, oh, special ed is the end process for this, and it's not.
Right.
And then also, when you look back historically, when schools were integrated, Brown versus Board of Education, special education they used that to segregate Black students.
Right.
That's where it's been happening historically. And then also, you have a overrepresentation of Black boys in special education, especially with the diagnosis of emotional disability, intellectual disability, and specific learning disability. They're constantly, like, those are like the three primary diagnoses that they get.
I feel like oftentimes it's not something that's really talked about, right? When people have kids with like special needs and stuff like that. If you could give a scale of how many families are really impacted by this.
I mean, the Black community is impacted a lot. Because like recently when I presented at the BMAC conference, the Black Males in Education Convening Conference.
Shout out to Sharif Al-Mekki.
Shout out to brother Sharif Al-Mekki. Like, that brother's dope.
Yeah.
Like 40% of special education population was Black. And I'm just like, dang, that's like almost half.
Right.
It's almost half. And when you go back and you look at, okay, well, what are the diagnoses? Like, what's the classification? Is always something dealing with behavior when it comes to our children.
4 out of 10, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're saying you don't think it's all legit, like...
Not all of it. Because well, for me, I could go back in the kid's history to see when did they get their IEP, and I can work my way up to where they are now. And when I look back, I can see, when I go back in a child's history, I can see like, okay, I can see how you got an IEP, but it's like, you don't exhibit this anymore. You're not exhibiting these behaviors no more. Like you know what I mean? It's like your case manager didn't do the extra work to like really like, where's the data? Where's the progress monitoring on your goals and all of this? And like, even I've had students where they started out with one diagnosis and it changed to something else. I'm like, how did that change in a year?
Right.
That's odd. And me coming in, I always did my job. I didn't care if it was extra work or I had to do extra steps. Everybody's not willing to do that.
Right.
Because it does take extra work. You got to really dig and see like, wait a second, you got to go back. You got to look at report cards. You got to look at old reports. It's so much you have to do when you go back in the history to work your way up to say like, mom, dad, listen, I found this. I really feel that we need to do a reevaluation, And it's like, I can't do too much unless the parent wants to.
Right.
Black children, especially black boys, how often are they misdiagnosed with bad behavior rather than actually saying that they have, special needs in some form or fashion?
It's about like 30%. And when you look at it, and then I even think back to my time being a teacher, I'm like, I've seen this.
Right.
I've seen this happen. It's like you have subjective judgment from teachers. You have teachers who skip steps. You have teachers, I don't want this kid in my class.
Right.
So it's like, okay, what can I do to get this kid out of my class? It's like, okay, when it's time to do like, oh, you know what? You need some tier 2 interventions. And it's like, I don't even have the data to support it, but I know the team. I'm going to really just complain to the principal. I'm going to really complain. I'm going to make sure, behavior, you're sending that kid to the office all the time. And it's like, after a certain number of those behavior reports, it's like, okay, what's going on here? Is this something underlying here?
Right.
But when you talk to the kid, hey, my parents got divorced. Or, hey, somebody in my family died.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't got food at home.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's so many different layers to it where it's like, especially if that student is not in a place where they're loved or someone cares really about them, it's like, and parents don't know that, oh, I can push back. I don't have to agree. They go through the special education process. Now, there are cases like, yes, students actually, have needs. It may be a learning deficit, or it could be a speech deficit or something like that. Not talking about that, but our Black boys is always behavior referrals. It's always, oh, he's defiant. It's like, well, what is defiant? Because what's defiant to you may not be defiant to me. So it's like, was he really disrespectful? Like, you know what I mean? Misinterpretation of how we talk to of how Black kids talk to each other.
I remember like getting an email because like it was a group of Black kids in the school talking about like busting on somebody's hairline, and the teacher, like, they just couldn't they didn't understand, they didn't relate, they didn't know like, yo, your hairline gotta be sharp. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, so I could see how that could progress. Those kind of
And here's another example. One of the kids, I was teaching 7th grade English, and one of the kids, he's Muslim and he's fasting.
Right.
So I get an email. Oh my God. I'm going to change the kid's name. We're just going to call him Malik. Oh my God. Have you seen Malik? He looks so lethargic. He told me he didn't eat this morning. And I was just like, I replied, I was like, he's Muslim. He's fasting.
Wow.
Send him to the bathroom. Let him rinse out his mouth, rinse off his face, and send him back to class.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was something quick and easy as that. I'm like, it's Ramadan. He's fasting.
Right.
And I was like, he wants to fast.
Like, what's unique about Muslim families that when you run into, that have, and when their children have IEPs?
What's unique? I don't think there is a uniqueness. I think I want to say they have a sense of comfort with me. Right. Because it's like, oh, you Muslim and you Black. It's like, okay, you understand. Or you're going to tell me straight, like, what I need to do for my kid. I think it's more of a they see themselves in me
Right.
and feel that I will definitely support them and be honest with them. I'll say that's it. And I'll say I get that with just Black clients, period. Teachers and parents, it's like, okay, she's Black. And then it's like, oh, you Muslim, I'm Muslim too. It's like, okay.
Right,
it's
right,
like,
right.
you're not, I think it's a sense of they trust me and they know I'm going to be honest. And then a lot of them, I want to say they have followed me and they're like, I see your content. I see you. I've seen you out with your sister. You know what I mean? And it's a sense of comfortability
that you can relate.
Right.
You
And
understand.
it's like, oh, no. It's like, you're not just a SPED teacher. It's like, no, this, you
This
understand because you have a family member. And it's like, I felt like I've kind of had best of both worlds because I have my sister. So I have that family aspect and I can bring that to educators like, listen. And then also I'm on the educator side and I can explain to parents like, listen, this is how it is on our side, what we see. So it's like I've always felt like I kind of had the best of both worlds because I could relate to the families, but I also can relate to the educators.
What part of the city you grew up in?
I always said North Philly. People are like, you're not from North Philly? That's Tioga. That's Nicetown.
Nicetown.
That's Nicetown,
Nicetown, Tioga.
Born and raised off of Erie Avenue.
Okay.
Born and raised on Monroe Street. So yeah.
Is that North Philly?
Yeah, it's kind of.
Yeah, it's like
Is that where the gym was?
It's like I'm right by Temple. Grew up by Temple Hospital. I could walk to Temple Hospital.
You born Muslim?
Born and raised a Muslim. Yes.
You have a big family?
I would say I think I have a regular sized family. I mean, I have 5 sisters.
5 sisters.
You know, I got a lot of, cousins, aunts, and uncles. So yeah, I would say I have a nice sized family.
So what's that like growing up?
Now everyone's not Muslim.
Okay.
In my family. But I never felt like I was treated differently because I was Muslim. Like I never got that from my aunts, my cousins, my grandparents ever. You know, my grandparents, especially my grandpa, he never wanted us to feel left out. So, like, he was sending, like, he knew we ain't celebrating Christmas, but he would still send us a gift or send us a card, you know, because he's sending all his other grandchildren stuff. So,
you're taking it too, right?
Of course, I'm taking it. But it was like,
looking like, man, what grandpa card?
Right. But it was like, I never felt like I was treated differently because I was Muslim in my family. But and it's crazy because like my parents wasn't born Muslim, but they've been Muslim longer than they've been Christian.
Okay.
So it's like, because they converted through the nation like back in the 70s. So it was like, wow.
For Muslims, they say the pen is lifted. And so there's nothing that's being written down to say that they're doing it intentionally.
Right.
And so you have to have a special type of patience to say, he didn't do it maliciously. I want to ask you another question. Is there a financial hardship with being a SPED teacher, or is it the same caliber of salary, like as far as the money?
Well, in Philly, SPED teachers got paid more than general education teachers, but it's like it wasn't enough. I can tell you, like, teachers still are underpaid.
Right.
Teachers are way underpaid.
Absolutely.
But it was just like, and then sometimes I've made content about gen ed teachers versus SPED teachers because it's like, sometimes SPED teachers are viewed as, oh, you're not even working because they don't see us.
Right.
You know what I mean? If we're not co-teaching with them, they may not see us at all. So, and they might say,
you find out teacher beef.
Yo, it gets real. I can tell you some stories. I can tell you some stories. It gets real. It gets real because they some don't see you. They don't see what you're doing. So it's like, oh, man, you just got 2 kids or you just got 3 kids. It's like, you don't understand. This one kid feels like 5.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or this one kid, I can hold his attention for 5 minutes. Yeah. We have to have breaks. It's so much extra that we have to do. And then also it really takes, you hear that it takes a village to raise a kid, but it really does, especially in education, especially teachers working together, teachers and the related service providers working together and communicating, to help. But like teachers are way underpaid. And what you learn in school is completely different in the field. And at the same time, like with students, like, you said the pen has been lifted. At the same time, you still got to hold your child accountable. Absolutely. And you still sometimes don't enable your child because when you're gone, who's going to look out and support your child? Like, and it's also not fair to, you know what, I'm just going to let them be. God forbid you pass on. I'm like, you put that burden on their siblings because it's like, well, what do I do?
Right.
With you never showed me, you never included me in how to support my brother or how to support my sister. Now, some parents don't know. Some parents are in denial. And then, it's just like, well, how do I help my child? And sometimes, a lot of times you have the black mom, they just take it all on themselves. I'm like, please don't do that.
Right.
Include your family so everyone knows, like, okay, how do we support Aisha? How do we support, Malik or whatever? How do we do that? And then also educating your community on how to best, because we're not, I'll say at the Masjid, everybody ain't always nice, the Masjid.
Yeah. What are some like misconceptions people have about like just the whole special needs IEP? Like, what are some of the main misconceptions you see?
I would say misconceptions are, it's just special education has always had it's always been a stigma. You're stupid. You're dumb. Right. You don't know nothing. That's right. All that's still prevalent. Yeah. That's still prevalent. Even with some teachers, even with some adults, it's like, and then even hearing kids, you you're special education, you this, you're special ed. I'm just like, that's like such a negative connotation there. And one, you have that. Two, they just need some discipline.
Right. Wait, who is they?
No, the kid. The kid who has special needs, they just need some discipline.
They
just need some discipline.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. My stepmom, shout out to her, but my stepbrother has Down syndrome.
Okay.
And growing up, I think he's like 5 years younger than me, but growing up, she always said, no, don't treat him different.
Right.
If he does something bad, he gonna learn to do something bad. He gonna learn what he's not supposed to do. And because he's the oldest brother of 8, he has 7 younger brothers. They always treated him like a big brother because his mother always made sure that she put him in that place. So even when it was time to do something, it was time to clean up, it was time to do something, he might have not been able to verbalize, exactly what he wanted, but they knew what he was talking about because he like kind of sound language was like, hey, go do this, go do that. And it was the way she treated him to make him feel like he had the confidence enough to not feel like he was less than.
Right. My mom was the same with my sister. So like a lot of people didn't know my sister had a disability because she's very social. She talks, we never... she didn't get in trouble as much as she should have, the way me and my sisters did.
Is she older, young?
She's the youngest. She's the youngest.
I'm sorry.
She's the youngest.
Right.
And so, but
the youngest get away with stuff anyway.
But she had chores like the rest of us, but it was chores that she could do.
Right.
And my mom, like, she always made sure she had her voice, like never told her, oh girl, be quiet. Like, she made sure she had her voice. So you do have... It's important really on, I'll say, how you address it, being a parent and being a teacher, like having a child with special needs, because it's going to I'll say that's going to set them up for success or it's going to be a detriment to them.
Right.
Because it's like, just because they have special needs, that doesn't mean you lower your expectations. Your expectations may change, but keep high expectations for them because you want to make sure they're going to have the best quality of life while you're here, while you're not here. So we do have that stigma of, okay, they don't know nothing. You do have that stigma of, those kids just need some discipline. Right. And then, and some Muslim communities like, oh my God, you're cursed. Oh my gosh.
Oh, wow.
You have a disability. I've seen that. And it's just like the lack of education. And then, looking at that family as, oh, y'all, you're cursed. It's like, what? I'm just like, are you serious? Yeah. But I'll say what I've seen a lot is that, that kid just needs some discipline. Yeah. And now when I'm in a Masjid, if I hear a kid, so much goes through my mind. I'm like, are they in pain? Are they overstimulated? Like, that's the first thing that goes through my mind. If I see a kid, I don't immediately go to, they're having a tantrum. I'm like, oh my God, are they overstimulated? Is it too noisy?
Like, what's the cause?
Yeah, I'm thinking of the root. And then sometimes I'm like, should I go ask that mom? She need help, But then sometimes I don't want to overstep.
Exactly. I was about to say, because it might be a pride thing. So how do you get more people to really understand what other people are going through? Because like you said, we're Muslim first. So we're always going to be around different people, different types of people. And I personally think people with special needs are angels. You know what I mean? I think you're taking care of an angel, and they're gonna be a witness for you.
Is that like doctrine?
I just personally think about it. The pen is lifted. They can do no wrong, And then on top of it, I mean, certain. They can do no wrong. The pen is lifted, and I just think you take care of an angel. So, but how do you get people to educate themselves more on the special needs community? Because there are more people diagnosed with certain things, especially autism.
Do you feel like it's been like a surge?
We've always had autistic individuals. You just never knew they were
just never know.
autistic. And then
Okay.
also Black children are less likely to be diagnosed with autism because they are viewed as having behavior problems. Like I said, so like they're stemming. Everyone stems differently.
When
So
you say stemming,
you ever see they
may
may be
do
flapping
this,
their
clap
arms
their
or
hands,
something because
clap.
they're overstimulated.
okay.
So kids stem differently. Some kids may go like this, or
Uh-huh.
they may go like this, or they do
yell.
it differently. Some kids may dance.
Right.
So it's like, oh my gosh, you can't sit
So
still.
that's
You're always dancing.
That's when you say stemming, you mean like a reaction to stimulus?
It's a reaction to being overstimulated.
Overstimulated. Okay.
You know,
So
and
they
so
stimulating themselves.
autistic children, like if you see them doing that, you know, they're excited. You know, they're overstimulated, and so some of our children, you know, they're not being viewed as, oh, you're stimming. It's like, no, you're acting out,
Mm,
or you can't be still.
right.
Because you think about some of our kids dancing all the time. You know what I mean? They could be stimming.
Listen,
You know, they could be stimming.
I
and
grew
then
up. You had to be still.
right.
Like you had.
You
know
wasn't
what I
still.
mean?
You
And
was
that's-
Be still, boy.
Right,
Like,
and,
you know what I mean?
and that's where I'm from too. Like you
Yeah.
had to sit there, sit there and be quiet.
Be-
You know what
sit
I
there, be
mean? Can you
quiet.
imagine someone autistic? You know what I mean? Can you imagine somebody autistic back then? And and like I've even seen children. You know what I mean? They will fight to keep it together
Mm,
in school. You know, they're fighting being overstimulated because they don't want to be viewed as being different.
Right,
And
right.
they're hold it together in school. When they get home, they
Lose
unleash
their
it all.
Mm.
And you know, parents let them do it because they've been holding it together all the time. But also, yeah, our children are less likely to be diagnosed with autism because autism is viewed as a little white boy's disability.
You had mentioned sometimes like parents are in denial,
Mhm.
right? How do you like deal with that? Like, do you have like a story, like, you know, like
Do I have a story?
I mean, like obviously no names, but
it's difficult because you want to intervene because early intervention is best.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? However, I understand some parents being in denial because just, you know, as Black people, it's like, okay, just our history, things that have happened to us, you know, it's like, okay, you're trying to diagnose my kid and it's like, you know, that's what you're trying to do and things like that. And it's like, no, mom, I'm not. Like, have you seen this? And for me, showing parents the data and things that I have collected in
Right.
class,
Right.
in school, you know, helps. And then because I'm like, mom, dad, we don't want to waste time. That's the worst thing that we can do.
I think sometimes it's like a perception that, okay, if my kid gets an IEP or if
Right.
he gets in the system, he's going to be stuck there.
Right.
And he's going to have like this, you know, this scarlet letter
Right.
of special ed on him.
Right. And then it's like, dang, did I do this to my child? Is it something that
Right.
is it something in me that I passed on to my child? But then also it's the lack of education because kids can be exited from special education. People are like, really? They can? I'm like, yes, they can be exited. I've had parents say, I don't want my kid having an IEP anymore. And I'm like, I'm like, mom, dad. I'm like, you sure? Because I'm like, they're making progress. They haven't mastered these things yet. They're making progress. They're like, I don't want it. And da-da. I'm like,
Why do you think they do that?
sometimes, like I've had some parents who were sending their child to another school.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, I don't want my kid having an IEP going into this school.
Right.
You know, it might be an Islamic school. And they're like, well, we don't take kids who have IEPs. You know, because private schools, they're not obligated to take children that have IEPs.
Right.
You know, so they're like, well, I don't want my kid to have it. I'm like, so how are they going to, you know, respectfully, I'm just like, well, mom, dad, how are they going to get this and get this? Like, what is your plan for that? You know, sometimes they may be like, well, it's none of your business or whatever. You know, sometimes it's like that. But you have some parents, well, they're going to this school. I don't want them to have that. Because even I've worked in public schools, charter schools, like even in those schools, even in the charter schools, some parents did not put on the application. I mean, they don't have to. My child has an IEP because they may think that it may cause them to not get in. But it's like, no, please let us know that right away. Because when I go do the billing, I'm like, who's this kid? I'm like, we got this kid in this school. Because I'm just like, we got to make sure we're implementing that IEP so that we don't get in no lawsuit, you know? So it's just a lack of education.
What's the demographic of between the teachers that just automatically say that this child has a behavioral problem rather than he has a special need problem, like he is high functioning autistic, or What's the grammar? Is it white? Is it black?
What, amongst the teachers?
Amongst the teachers.
Well, I mean, a lot of the teachers are predominantly white in this city.
Okay.
So it's like you have some black teachers, but it's like the teachers are predominantly white.
Brown versus Board of Education. Do you feel as though that was a deficit in the public school system for us?
Looking at it, I can see both sides.
Okay.
Because one, it's like, okay, I want to be able to send my child wherever school. You know, I want to have that right. Don't tell me I can't send my child anywhere.
Right.
But then it's like, on the other hand, it's like, okay, my child is going to be in a school where they have people that look like them and people are going to pour into them. You know what I mean? Because I've been in predominantly black schools. I've worked in the city. I've worked in the suburbs, and I can see the difference. It's like, okay, just because you send your child to the suburbs, hey, you got some extra stuff you need to do, because I'm telling you, they're not loved here.
Right.
They're dealing with somebody microaggressions,
Yeah.
you know, from adults. You know what I mean? They're dealing with that. And it's like, have you trained your child on how to deal with that? And a lot of parents, it's like, no, it's just like, oh, I sent my kid because I was like, okay, better education. We in a better environment. But I'm like, how have you set them up for success to handle that? And also, are you making sure they're still amongst their people? I don't care how far away you are. Right. Are you still making sure they are amongst their people? And then, hey, being in a predominantly black school, it's like, okay, are you exposing my child to all types of opportunities out here, not just for blacks?
Right.
But you know what I mean?
It sounds like you got it all covered, right? So you dealing with the parent.
It's just a lot of experience.
You dealing with the parent. You dealing with
the teachers.
With the child. You dealing with the teacher.
When you're a sped teacher, man, you deal with so much.
And you're dealing with the administration. It's a systemic thing.
It's a systemic issue, yeah.
What do you feel like is the biggest challenge from a systemic, the thing that you're going to fix? Because I feel like you're going to fix it.
Right.
Like, I mean, you're passionate about it. You know, you have a personal connection to it.
Yeah.
And, you know, so when you talk about, you know, putting in extra work, doing your job, you know, you almost got like you're super intelligent. So you almost got like an unfair advantage. But what's the systemic issue that you're going to solve?
Systemic issue. I would say the issue that I'm going to solve, well, that I am solving, is the lack of training for our teachers. So that way you're not getting in these lawsuits because you don't know what you're doing. You don't know how to support this kid. You don't know how to support this family. A lot of it goes back to education. A lot of it goes back to exposure. When you are studying special education, you don't learn how to write no IEP when you're in college. You don't learn none of this in college. It's all on the job training. So it's like, if you don't get that, you can be spewing misinformation. You can get your school or your district in a lawsuit because you don't know what you're doing. And then at the same time, it's like, how are you supporting these students? Yeah. So it's a lack of education. And it's also the administrators. Do you see this being a priority for your staff?
Right.
Because this benefits not just sped teachers, this benefits your staff, period. Because you have students with IEPs in general education classrooms. They don't every student don't require a specialized environment or a specialized school. So it all goes back to education.
Right.
And it all goes back to, what do you prioritize? What's important to you? Because you're going to pay either way. You're either going to pay through a lawsuit or you're going to pay to have someone like me come in.
This is the areas that Black Muslim women just not in. You could take black women not in it, women not, like, you know. So I really want to commend you. Thank you for, you know, just kind of obliging our questions about this. I've heard this term like, oh, I'm gonna sue the school, right? Talk like, and I'm thinking, you know, like, I'm ignorant to it, right? So I'm thinking, like, are you getting money or are you getting a cert? Like, I don't.
Like, how does that work?
Like, what do you, when somebody is like, oh, you know, the IEP didn't do this or did this, and I'm assuming.
So yeah, so an IEP, that's a legal document. It's a legal document, and it has to be enforced. It has to be followed. Whatever's in that IEP, it has to be followed. So if your child is supposed to be in this type of setting, they're supposed to get that. If they're supposed to get these particular accommodations, they're supposed to get it. If they get speech, occupational therapy, they're supposed to get whatever's in that IEP. You're supposed to get it. If they are not getting that, parents can sue because, hey, you're not following this legal document. And so when the parents say I'm suing the school, they're suing because you're not implementing my child's IEP the way it's supposed to. You're telling me, oh, we don't do that, but it's like, it's in my child's IEP, so you have to do it.
You have to do it.
And you got to do it the best of your ability. So when that happens, and let's say the parent sues the school, sues the district, and say, hey, they win, that child is getting compensatory services. So they get compensatory funds. So it's not like, oh, the parent get this check. No, it's like it's a trust. And so that money can be used for whatever that kid needs. Right. So, hey, they wasn't getting speech. Okay, you can pick whatever speech pathologist you want. Here is the fund of money that it'll come from.
Okay.
They can, sometimes schools, hey, you can't even educate my child here. You got to pay for my child to go to private school. So they paying for their child to go to private school.
A lot of people know I just became a police officer. Is there a type of education that you give police officers,
I personally, at the IEP Coach, we personally don't. We can definitely do workshops for police officers, but also one of my friends, Jamilah Owens, he's a volunteer firefighter, but he has definitely, and his son has autism, so he has definitely done trainings for firefighters. He's done trainings for police officers, and because also he knows that world, so he's like done that, and they've done I want to say like resource fairs where state who was it? Was it Newman College? You had the state officers were out there, and they were talking about what they do to specifically train their officers about individuals who have autism. Right. But you can even add individuals who have mental health issues because it's a certain way you have to go about handling that, but at the same time, protect yourself and those in the space. That's just like, when I've been in a classroom and let's say this student is having a severe meltdown, I have to get these other kids out the room. And it's like, okay, will it be easier to get these other kids out the room, or is it easier to get the kid that's having this severe meltdown out? So it's like, even in that situation, because I have to make sure that student having a meltdown does not hurt themselves and does not harm myself or even the students in the space too. We don't, but we always do. We're always open to doing workshops. We've partnered with some other consultants, and we did we called it overstimulated in the Masjid. Was it sensory overload in the Masjid? Oh wow. We did it about 2 or 3 years ago at Claire Muhammad. Wow. Well, Philadelphia Masjid, because one of my friends, Thomasina Lee, she does Tall Hairs Village. Her son has autism, and she just was going off of her experience not being able to stay at the Masjid with her son. So we really petitioned for them to get a sensory room in the Masjid. And we did like a whole panel discussion about what it is, what it's not, because sometimes I'm like, it's not fair. A parent should be able to come and, hey, if my child is having a meltdown because they're overstimulated, I should be able to take them somewhere, but I can still hear the khutbah or I can still hear the talim that's going on.
It's commendable because it's up to us to advocate for us, right?
Yeah, we gotta give it what it is that we're looking for. And also, I even did a presentation about this, about just places of worship. Are you truly accessible? You know what I mean? And not just getting inside your masjid or getting inside your church or synagogue. Are you truly accessible? Like, what do you do? Like, do you know if you have any members in your congregation who are deaf? Can they even, follow along what you're saying? Yeah. Things like that. And how do you go about supporting that? So, yeah.
Talk about, you're 6 years older than your youngest sister. How was it?
I was extremely overprotective of my sister when we went out. It was like I couldn't really chill, relax when I was done because I'm just like, I'm on edge. I'm like, when people came on, like, what you want? Like, that's how my attitude was. So, because people are cruel and mean, Muslim or not. People are cruel and mean. And some people, they just want to see, your reaction and how you're going to do things. So, like, I will always let people start talking, but it's like, I would stop what I was doing so I can focus on what they're saying to my sister or how they're behaving around my sister. So, yeah, I was always on edge. Very overprotective. Like it was to the point like, hey, I'm 11, but I'm stressed. I'm a stressed 11-year-old.
A lot of parents who feel like they didn't get that, like, I guess, fun time. They feel like they always had to be stressed out and things like that. Do you feel like that happened to you?
Did I feel like I had to grow up a little bit? Yeah, I did feel like I had to grow up just a little bit because as Black parents, it's like, oh, go help your sister.
Yeah.
Go help your brother. You going outside? Take your sister with you.
Yeah,
Take your brother.
Right.
So it was just like, I remember I felt like I was a parent to her.
Mm.
And I never forget, I think my mom just saw maybe a change in my behavior or a change in my attitude. And she was I remember she made me write an essay about it.
Nice.
And I just started writing about how I was feeling.
Shout out to moms.
I didn't even write about.
Shout out to moms.
I didn't even write.
That's crazy.
Like what she was asking, I just wrote how I was feeling. And she just said, I'm so sorry. She's like, I'm so sorry. Because my mother is the oldest out of all her siblings.
All right. So
and
she got the same.
And she was just like, I'm doing to you what was done to me. And she was just like, I'm so sorry. Because I was just like, I'm her sister. I'm not her mom.
Yeah.
And I was scared, because I'm like, all Black parents are not open to having that conversation or whatever. But I remember after that, my mother changed her work schedule because she was she worked in the hospital. She was a nursing assistant. She changed her work schedule so that way it wasn't like, oh, it was all on me when I got home from school. You know what I mean? So it was a big shout out to my mom for that, because by her doing that, it allowed me to get more involved into extracurricular activities for school. If I wanted to stay late to do something, I could. I didn't have to like rush home to do anything. But I did feel like I did grow up just a little bit because it was just more responsibility on me, like making sure she ate or helping her with her homework and all of that.
What's your high school experience like, right? Because just outside of your sister, just being Muslim, covering Muslim and a Philly high school.
Yes.
And this is like the late 90s?
Late 90s, early 2000s.
So what's that? What's life like? What's life like for Jamilah?
Honestly, I had a great high school experience. Ninth grade, I was at an Islamic school. And then I left. My mom was taking me out. She was like, I think my mother knew I was college bound. She was like, listen, I got to put you in public school because I just need you to have access to other programs and things like that. So, I grew up, my neighborhood high school was Gratz. So my mom was like, you ain't going to Gratz. I was like, okay. For me, you're going wherever your parents send you. So my mother has a younger brother. He's only 3 years older than me.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
I just had to say that.
You got to love Muslim families.
So you understand. My mother is.
So your uncle.
He's my uncle. So my mother, and put it like this.
Your brother. Uncle.
My mom, like I said, my mother's the oldest out of all her siblings. My mother's 69.
And she got a brother.
My uncle is 3 years older than me.
Right.
So you look at my grandpa like, dang, man. But anyway,
listen.
I just had to put that concept out there. So my uncle is in the 12th grade. I'm in the 10th grade. My uncle went to Bartram Human Services, and Sister Nabia Parker, who does Islamic Heritage Foundation, she was a teacher there at the time. And so my mother knew her, and my mother was like, I'm trying to get my daughter to good school. So she was just like, well, bring her over to my school. So, and my mother took me there until they put my name on the roll, because they had me on roll at the main building. She was like, you ain't going to the main building. And she was like, you're going to this school where Sister Nabia is and your uncle is. So went there.
Was it a lot? You feel like it was a lot of Muslims? No.
I think the only visible Muslim was myself and what's her name? I think her name was Salima Suswell, younger sister.
Okay.
We were the only visible Muslims in that school.
Okay. Wow.
Was it difficult to be a visible Muslim? At that time?
Was it difficult for me? I was nervous because I'm coming from Islamic school.
Right.
So I was nervous. It was like, and also I did not live in West Philly. I'm not from West Philly at all.
Right.
And so I'm like, they already know each other and they all been in middle school together. I want to say I've never had an issue where somebody pulled my hijab off. I never had that happen to me. I never had someone say oh my God, why are you doing? I did not experience any of that. Wow. Even to this day, I keep in contact with people I went to high school with. They always say, you know what, I admired you. And I was like, really? Yeah.
You ain't say nothing then.
But I didn't have a bad experience. I'll say I didn't deal with discrimination or I'm like, oh my God, I'm dealing with this math stuff. It was just, your regular high school stuff. Mm. So, yeah.
You graduate from high school, you go to college. Can you think of a time where it was you really had to because you was born Muslim.
Right.
Where you had to choose nah, this the way I live?
I want to say it probably was my college years is I feel because I feel like I made a decision like, okay, I'm Muslim for me. I'm not Muslim because my parents are Muslim. And I say my college years because I don't have no supervision.
Right.
It's me. I'm getting myself up to make salat.
Yeah.
I'm still covering. You know, I still adhered to my hijab.
Right.
It's like if I didn't, it's like, who's going to check me if I'm not? So I feel like college years, and I lived on campus all 4 years.
Right.
I was in college. So it was like, again, who would check me if I wasn't praying, if I'm not covering or whatever. I want to say I was a visible Muslim. There wasn't a lot of Black Muslims on campus.
Right. What college did you go?
I went to Widener.
Widener, yeah.
I went to Widener. So it was in Chester. So I mean, I'm in a Black city,
right?
But it was like, and I knew people in Chester, but it wasn't like on campus.
They're not going to Widener, though.
Right? Ain't nobody going to Widener. And it's crazy how even when I went to Widener, they be like, "Don't go over the bridge," and we like, for what? It was like, because it was Chester. We were like, we from Philly, whatever.
Right.
That's how we was. We went over the bridge so many times. I'm like, please, we live in Philly. Like, we from Philly. It don't matter. But yeah, because definitely it had to be my college years because it was on me. It was on me to study. It was on me to go to class. It was on me to wake myself up to do what I needed to do. So I can say that's when it was like, okay, I am Muslim because I choose to be a Muslim, not because my parents converted to Islam and they raised me to be a Muslim. Like, I'm a Muslim because I want to be a Muslim.
Early in the conversation, we was talking about you wanted to be, you wanted your major to be biology.
My major was biology.
Your major was biology. Can you talk about, like, was it science that made you, like, what was it? Because everybody got that story, like, what changed? What happened?
I got a work study job where I was working in a school. And I loved it so much. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do this 100%. But I think it was the work study job I had working in the schools. I think I was a tutor. It was this after school program in Chester, and we would tutor the kids there. We would help them with their homework and all that. And I think just making those connections with them, I really liked it. And then I was like, do I want to change my major? And I remember sitting with one of my friends going through the catalog book, and I was like, none of this interests me. I was like, I don't want to do education. But then I kept flipping. I was like, special education. I was like, I think I'll do that. And I immediately thought of my sister as I was looking through that. And I was just like, I wonder what type of teachers Asia got. You know, I was just starting thinking about that. Like, I wonder if she got people that love her, that people that actually care about her and that are educating her. And I want to say, I think that's where it started. And I was like, no. I closed the book. And then it was just like, you know how Allah just will make you uncomfortable to move how he wants you to. And I feel like that was just happening to me in my life.
Absolutely.
Every work study job after that is like, it was something dealing with kids. And it was something, I would be in a special education classroom. And then I was like, and then even when I changed my major to special education, I'm still like, okay, I'm going to still do my prerequisites. I'm going to still do that. But Allah was like, no, I need you to focus on this. I need you to do this. And then I want to say once I just leaned into it, I was just like, I've had a practicum every single semester, and I just loved it. And I was just like, okay, Allah, okay, I'm gonna do this. All right. Soften my heart. I don't want to deal with these bad behind kids, because that was my initial mindset. But it was just like, I kept thinking about my sister the whole time. So
you're born Muslim. All of this time. And then the wave of emergence of Muslims in Philly hit. How are you feeling about that, right? Because you in Bartram, right? And it's only you and another Muslim girl.
Yeah, but it's like I feel like being in Philly, it's like people knew about Muslims. They knew how to get us salams. They know how to say wallahi. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. But
you know how to say wallahi.
So, they knew how to say it, because they would say, well, I'm like, what you say? Well, do you even know what it means? Right. But I would say, like, I think being in Philly made it a little different.
Yeah.
A little different, because it's like somebody on your block is Muslim, somebody in your family is Muslim, or somebody you work with is a Muslim too. So it was just a little different.
What are you saying to like your young Muslimahs today?
Okay, so I used to be a Lima scout leader. So I did that from 2012 to 2020.
Okay.
And I had the high schoolers.
Okay.
And the reason I chose high schoolers, because I'm like, I work with middle schools all day, and I've had elementary. I'm like, I don't want to. I was like, I want to just I want to have real conversations
Right.
with this, and I don't want you running to your mom saying I hurt your feelings or something.
Mm.
Being a scout leader, that really allowed me to see, like, man, some of our children are going through it.
We go
when I say
drill down on like going.
When
through
I say
it.
going through it, they have the challenges of being a Muslim, especially the girls, because you visibly are. People can visibly see that you are a Muslim. So having those struggles of covering, adhering to hijab, they feel like they're missing out, because I don't get to, wear this to school or dress a certain way. They're noticing how girls who dress a certain way get certain attention from boys. Hey, I want to get the same attention too. Also, just their mindsets about marriage. Some of them don't even I don't even want to get married.
Right.
Being tempted with drugs, being tempted with drinking, just all the temptations, of that. So, and then also having these scouts, I know their families, and then also I'm learning, dang, everybody Muslim, but everybody not raising Muslims. I want to say that was huge for me being a scout. I'm like, oh my God. And I'm just like, I ain't gonna say no names, but I'm just like, wait, I know your family.
Right,
I know people in your family. I'm like, you don't know how to pray? Or you don't know like the 4 rukus?
Right.
And then try not to show it on my face. You don't know. And I'm just like, oh, it's okay. Oh, it's cool. Okay, I'll help you. And then even having other scouts who, were, not being judgmental and helping them too. But it was just very eye-opening to see just all of that. And I'm just like, dang. And I'm just like, I hope Islam don't just stop with me.
Right.
In my family. It made me think about that, because I'm just like, dang, it's like, I don't want to say who's raising you, but it's like, dang, what are you learning at home?
Right.
And sometimes it's like, they're getting Islam from scouts.
Right.
What they're learning at scouts is like, okay, that's sufficing my Islamic studies, my Quran and all that. And I'm like, well, that's not all we do at scouts. And I'm like,
they're supposed to be
right. It's just like,
at home.
and it's like, I don't have kids. So it's like, I can't be like, yo, mom, you still need to do this, or dad, you still need to do this at home. And then also sometimes when I'll say you have those families who are poly families, and it's like, okay, you got this group, you got this I don't want to say batch of kids. You have these kids and you have these kids, and it's like, okay, we all got the same dad. We all ain't got the same upbringing. We all don't live in the same house. So it's like, my mom not Muslim, but your mom's Muslim, and it's so much. And I'm just like, wow. And it's like, even talking with Sister Antoinette about it in direct, I'm like, this generation is different. It's just changed. Like, hey, when I wasn't in Scouts when I was younger, but back in the day, like, your mom would come, your mom's staying there with you. It's like, now it's like dropping you off and I'm going on. Or it's like, okay, I'll be downstairs, if you need me. And it's like, you have a few dads who'll drop their daughters off. And it's like, I wonder if he need help. You know what I mean? But I want to say it was overwhelming at first being a scholar, because I'm like, oh, where do we start? Like, where do you begin? And it was just like, I want to say, like, once I found my groove, and then also I had a co-scout leader too, so we were able to bounce ideas off each other. But I'm a huge supporter of always having student voice, always talking to them like, what do you want out of this? Because you're the one that's coming every week. So I remember at one point we had about 22 girls, high schoolers, coming.
Wow.
Every week. And I was like, y'all get on my nerve. Oh my gosh. But it was like, some of them I met, when they were 13. So now it's like, I see my scouts, dang, you married now, you're a mom, you graduated from college. I wrote letters of recommendation, for them. I've been to their weddings, it's just a blessing that I was there, even through their college years. And sometimes, hey, we're friends with social media. I wouldn't be your friend on social media until after you graduate school. Right. I might see you doing something. I'm just like, listen, I understand. Don't get me wrong. I understand. But do know you are representing Islam at your school. And they're going to look at you as the example. So I know you may not want to carry that, but this is how it is. And I said, it's so easy to tarnish your reputation, and it's so hard to repair it. And I said, I'm not judging. I understand. But I said, I can't just not say anything
Right.
to you. And so she said, you know what? And I think because of how I approached her, I didn't get no attitude from her or nothing like that. And her mom even reached out to me, was like, thank you so much for saying something to her, because it's just like, okay, you do get into that situation. Like, do I say something? Do I not say something?
Mm.
But it was like, I'm like, I can't not say nothing. I know you.
Right.
You know, I cannot say nothing.
Personally, what does success look like for Jamilah
Personally.
Bashir?
Just in life, period?
In life period.
Oh, I would say success to me living my unapologetic, authentic self every single day and doing the work that brings me joy.
You don't have children.
I don't, because honestly, it's like, if I can't show up as my unapologetic, authentic self, what am I doing here?
Right.
Okay.
Why am I in this environment if I can't show up as me?
Okay.
And then also, just the older I've gotten, doing the work that brings me joy,
Right.
not just doing work.
Right.
It's become very, very important to me.
Right.
So it's like, for me, that's being successful, because then I'm happy doing that.
Right.
Because I feel like that applies to my personal life. That applies to my professional life too. I want to get married, yes,
Okay.
absolutely, and have children. I do want a family, you know.
Okay.
Do you feel as though you're a very educated woman? Do you feel as though it's a hardship with that?
I mean, my ex-husband was educated too. So, I mean, it depends on, again, you know, are we evenly yoked? You know, that's very important, you know, doing your research, you know, absolutely, on the person, you know, who it is. Cause it's like, I mean, I know I'm very clear on who I am, you know, and, you know, if you do your research, you would know that, you know what I love to travel. There are things that I love to do. And there are some things I'm like, I'm not going to stop doing because perhaps you don't want me to. I'm like, I can't.
Okay. When
you go into marriage, it's like, you know, you can start something and that person think you're going to be like that all the time and you're not. And things can happen. I'm just like, listen, just be honest about who you are and no fronts. Hey, you either going to accept me or you're not, and I'm going to accept you or I'm not. So, but I'm very optimistic about, you know,
so what does success look like for the IEP Coach LLC?
Okay. What does success look like? Oh my gosh, I got so many big goals for the IEP Coach.
Give us the top.
Our ultimate goal, we are the top go-to education consulting company for special education services and training for teachers and for parents. We are the go-to, because like I just see us getting bigger. I see us, you know, adding more team members, adding related service providers, because the community needs it. Schools need it too. You know, and we look like you, you know, because it's not a lot of us. That's like ultimate goal, success goal for the IEP Coach.
Love it.
I mean, you're definitely from Philly.
Yep.
So, what's the question? Oh, cheesesteaks or hoagies?
Honestly, I'm a big pizza person.
See, I was going to change it from cheesesteaks to pizza.
I'm a huge pizza person.
Like,
I love pizza.
Love pizza?
Where you getting your pizza from?
King of Pizza on Germantown Avenue is right up the street from Temple Hospital. That pizza is so good.
Is it flat? Is it flat or is it like doughy?
It's not healthy. It's greasy and all that.
Is it doughy?
No.
It's real flat. Like,
it's a spot. They have not renovated that spot. It looks the same from when I used to go to when
dirty.
I was a kid.
That's cold for
it's dirty. The old Italian. I'm not even sure they still own it.
His hands.
That pizza is so good. But yeah, I'm a pizza person.
Okay.
You're a pizza person.
Listen, I get it.
You're a pizza person.
I'm pizza, cheesesteak, then a hoagie. I don't like a thick, cold sandwich.
So not too much.
You can't put a lot of cheese on it. You can't put a lot of meat on it. Some people like that. I don't. Now, if it's a cheesesteak, if it's a warm sandwich, yes, you can pack it.
No, I need extra turkey on that joint.
No.
That's what I need.
No. But I love me a good
nice
pizza.
Cheesesteak.
Some good pizza.
It's a good pizza. Now, is it just cheese or you toppings?
I can do halal pepperoni.
Halal pepperoni. That's about it?
Are you team halal only?
I try my best.
Are you team the biha or halal?
I try my best.
All right. Man,
I try my best. But no, I do go. For meats, I do go to the halal market to get my meats.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your favorite Favorite Philly slang? Because y'all unique.
Philly slang. I do say John.
That's your joint.
But then people hear it in my voice when I say certain things. Oh, you from Philly?
Are you from?
They hear it in my voice.
When you talking to the student, like you be putting on a little bit when you talking to students.
It depends on the kids.
Right.
It depends because some kids you can. It's just how some kids just don't have boundaries. They don't know okay. They don't know okay. When we hear, we can talk like this, but when we hear,
right,
we don't talk
right.
this. So
you in
professional
I
all the time.
I feel I don't play around with kids.
They probably like, she don't talk like that.
But it's funny. It's like if they meet me out in the street, it's like, I ain't know you. I said because and the reason I don't is because I've got mistaken for being one of my students too many times. Like especially if I'm sitting down there, we're doing work or something. I've done high school. I've done middle school.
Okay.
I've gotten
black don't crack. That's all it is.
Yeah, and some people don't think I'm the age I am, but when they hear me talk, they're like, "Wait a second, how old are you?" I get that. So yeah.
All right. So class of 2002.
Yeah.
02.
Drumline or Brown Sugar? Which movie you picking? Wait, Drumline. You gotta go
Drumline. Yeah, I go
Drumline. Both of those movies. Which one have I seen more?
I think I've seen Brown Sugar more than I've seen Drumline.
I believe you've seen Brown Sugar more.
I'm gonna
I believe that about you.
I don't know why.
I love both of those movies, but I would go with Drumline.
You go with Drumline?
Yeah. I love both of them.
Both of them like solid. Both of them solid.
I ain't gonna lie, I do laugh every time he get mad and start doing this.
Who is it? Nick Cannon?
Yeah.
He take his little steps.
Yeah, it is just you got some iconic scenes in that. So,
you do.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah.
So we're gonna wrap up with this one.